The following accounts were harvested from listeners across the states, originally aired on Lurking Moon Radio.
You're listening to Lurking Moon Radio. It's 3:05 a.m., the hour where the veil doesn't just thin, it tears. I'm your host, George UFO Martin, and tonight we're diving into a phenomenon that turns the stomach of even the most hardened researchers. We're talking about the BEKs, those pale, pitch-black-eyed hitchhikers of the soul. I have a caller on the line from the suburbs of Chicago. Elena, are you there?
I'm here, George. My hands are shaking just holding the receiver. I haven't turned the porch light on in 3 nights. I don't think I ever will again.
Take a breath, Elena. We're all friends in the dark here. You're in Naperville, right? That's usually a quiet, upscale slice of Illinois, not exactly the place you'd expect a brush with the uncanny. Tell us how it started.
It was exactly 3 a.m. I know because the digital clock on my microwave was glowing like a radioactive thumb in the kitchen. The silence out here near the prairie is heavy, George. It's not a peaceful quiet. It's an expectant one. Then came the knock. 3 slow, rhythmic thuds. Boom, boom, boom. It wasn't a frantic help-me knock. It was demanding.
That's the classic signature, the uninvited guest protocol. Did you look through the peephole?
I did, and I wish to God I hadn't. Standing there on my mat were 2 boys, maybe 10 and 12 years old. They were wearing these archaic, drab hoodies, monochrome gray that looked like they were made of heavy wool despite the humidity. But it was their skin, George. It wasn't just pale. It was the color of a fish belly left out in the sun. Waxy. Dead.
And the eyes, Elena. Tell the listeners about the eyes.
I couldn't see them at first because their heads were tucked down. The taller one, he says in this voice, George, it didn't sound like a child. It was a flat, resonant monotone that vibrated in my own chest. He said, "We're lost, Elena. We need to use your phone. Our parents are waiting. Let us in."
Wait, he used your name? You hadn't opened the door yet?
Not a crack. I felt this sudden, oily wave of nausea hit me. My fight-or-flight response didn't just kick in, it screamed. It was a primal, sulfurous dread. I told them through the wood that I'd call the police for them, but I wouldn't open the door. The moment I said police, the air in the hallway turned freezing. I could see my own breath frosting in the air.
That's a localized thermal drop, typical of high-strung manifestations. What did they do next?
The taller one looked up, directly into the peephole. That's when I saw them. No iris, no white. Just 2 obsidian pits of absolute nothingness. It was like looking into 2 entry points to a vacuum. It wasn't just a physical trait. It felt like those eyes were pulling the heat and the light right out of my brain. He said, "You have to invite us in. We can't come in unless you say the words. We just want to use the phone. Don't be afraid, Elena. We are just like you."
Just like you. That's the lie they use to bridge the gap. It's a predatory mimicry. Did the younger one speak?
He started scratching the door. Not with nails. It sounded like bone on wood. Scritch, scritch. He whispered, "It's so cold out here. Your house is so warm, just a little invitation. We won't stay long, we just need to find what we lost. His voice was like dry leaves blowing over a grave. I backed away from the door, and George, I swear on my life, I started smelling something. It was the scent of ozone and rotting meat, like a butcher shop after a power outage.
That's the stench of the void, Elena. Many witnesses report a chemical or organic decay smell. It's the breakdown of the glamour they try to project. What happened when you refused again?
I yelled that they leave. I screamed that I was armed. The scratching stopped instantly. Total, suffocating silence. I waited, huddled on the floor of my kitchen, clutching a steak knife. Then I heard the taller one again, but his voice wasn't coming from the door anymore. It sounded like it was coming from the air vents. He said, "We will remember the scent of your fear, Elena. It's a very sweet vintage. We'll be back when the moon is hidden."
Chilling. Absolutely visceral. Did you see where they went?
I waited 10 minutes, then crept to the window. There were no footprints in the dew on the grass. None. But on my front door, right where the tall one had been standing, there were 2 black, oily handprints burned into the wood. The paint was bubbled and charred, George. It looked like the door had been touched by something that burned at 1,000 degrees. Yet it was ice cold to the touch.
Naperville has seen its share of weirdness, but this is a direct predatory stalking. Listeners, if you hear that rhythmic knock at 3 a.m., do not look, do not speak, and for the love of all that is holy, do not offer an invitation. Elena, thank you for sharing that nightmare with us. Stay in the light tonight.
I'm trying, George, but I just heard a soft thud on the roof right above my bedroom. I don't think they've left the property.
We're going to a break. When we come back, more accounts of the things that walk the suburbs when the world is asleep. This is Lurking Moon Radio. Don't touch that dial. They might hear you. Welcome back to Lurking Moon Radio. We're broadcasting deep into the dead hours, and the switchboard is lighting up like a Christmas tree in a thunderstorm. If you're just joining us, we've been discussing the glitches in the veil, those entities that don't just look like shadows, but like corruption in the very fabric of our reality. I have Marcus on the line from Columbus. Marcus, bloody, you sound like you've seen a ghost, or maybe something much worse. You there?
I'm here, George. I'm sitting in my kitchen with every single light in the house on, and I still feel like I'm being watched from the corners of my own eyes. I live in a renovated brownstone over in Victorian Village, you know? Old wood, high ceilings. It's supposed to be charming. Now it feels like a trap.
Victorian Village has a heavy history, Marcus. Lots of old energy in those foundations. Tell the folks at home, when did the Static Man first make his appearance?
It started about 3 nights ago. I was finishing up some work late, maybe 2 a.m. I had the TV on in the background for some white noise, just an old local news broadcast that had gone to that off-air screen, you know, the black and white salt and pepper grain. Suddenly the room felt heavy, like the atmospheric pressure just plummeted. My skin started to crawl, George. It felt like needles were being pressed into my pores.
That's a classic precursor to a shadow person manifestation. The static feeling on the skin is usually the electromagnetic field reacting to a high-density entity. What happened when you looked at the screen?
That's the thing. It wasn't just on the screen. I saw a reflection in the window glass, At first I thought it was a burglar, but the shape was all wrong. It was a man, or at least the silhouette of one, standing right behind my sofa, but he wasn't solid black. He was made of moving television static. Thousands of tiny, frantic black and white sparks vibrating so fast the air around him was humming. That's a rare one, Marcus. We call those static shadows. They aren't just absence of light, they're a presence of interference. Did he move? He didn't walk, he glitched. I spun around and he was gone from the sofa, but he was suddenly 6 feet closer, standing by the hallway door. Every time he shifted, I heard this sound, like a high-frequency scream mixed with the crackle of a burning fuse. Bzzzt. It was deafening, George. My ears started to bleed. I could feel the warm copper taste in my mouth.
My God, Marcus, that's an aggressive physical interaction. Most shadow entities are passive observers, but this sounds like it was radiating raw, unfiltered radiation or energy. Did he have a face? No features, just a void where the face should be, but within that void, the static was more violent. It looked like a storm of dead pixels. He raised a hand, long, spindly fingers that looked like they were fraying at the edges, and reached for my face. I couldn't move. It was like sleep paralysis, but I was wide awake. The air smelled like burnt hair and ozone. It was suffocating. The ozone scent. That's a telltale sign of a rift. Did he touch you? His fingers brushed my forehead. It didn't feel like skin. It felt like 1,000 tiny electric shocks burning through my skull. I felt my vision go white, and for a second I saw things, George. I saw a world that looked like a broken transmission, distorted faces, screaming landscapes, all rendered in that horrible gray grain. He leaned in, and I heard a voice. It wasn't words. It was a burst of white noise that sounded like, "Not yet." Not yet. That's ominous as hell, Marcus. What happened after the contact? He just collapsed into himself, like someone hit a power switch. He shrank into a single white dot in the middle of the room, and then vanished into nothing. But the damage was done. I checked the mirror after I could finally move. I have a mark, George, a patch of skin on my temple where he touched me. The hair has turned bone white, and the skin looks like it was etched with a fine needle. It's a pattern of tiny geometric burns. You've been marked by a static entity, Marcus. That's heavy, man. That's usually a beacon for them to find their way back. Are you seeing anything now? That's why I called. I'm looking at the TV right now. It's unplugged. The cord is sitting there on the floor, George. But the screen, it's glowing. It's faint, but there's a shape forming in the static. It looks like him, and this time, he's got a friend. There are 2 of them, and they're pressed up against the glass from the inside, like they're trying to push through a thin sheet of plastic. Marcus, get out of that house, now. Don't grab your keys, don't grab your coat. Go to a public place with bright, natural light. Listeners, we are witnessing a live breach. This isn't just a haunting, this is an incursion. Marcus? Marcus, are you still there? They're out. Static grows louder. George, the lights are pop. Marcus? Damn it, we lost him. We just lost the feed. Control, can we get that line back? No, it's just dead air. All right, folks, we're going to try to reconnect with Marcus Holloway in Columbus. If anyone is in the Victorian Village area and sees a house with flickering gray light in the windows, call the authorities. We'll be right back after these messages. Stay tuned, if you can. You're listening to Lurking Moon Radio. It's 3:12 a.m., and for those of you just joining our Identity Crisis special, we're peeling back the layers on one of the most terrifying glitches in the human experience, the doppelganger. This isn't just a twin or a look-alike. We're talking about a biological and spiritual hijack. I have Chloe on the line from Austin. Chloe, you're calling from the Terrytown area? That's a beautiful part of Texas, but I hear the air in your house has turned a bit sour lately.
Sour doesn't cover it, George. It smells like iron and wet copper, like someone opened a vein in the vents. I'm currently locked in my car in the driveway, and I can see the kitchen light on from here. I can see her through the window.
Steady now, Chloe. We're with you. Walk us through the arrival. You were coming home from a late shift, right?
Right. I'm a surgical nurse, so I'm used to blood, and I'm used to things looking wrong. But nothing prepares you for this. I pulled into the garage around 8 p.m. The house was quiet, which was weird because my two boys, Toby and Sam, are usually wrestling in the living room at that hour. I walked through the mudroom, and the first thing I noticed was the temperature. It was August in Austin, George, but inside the house it felt like a meat locker. I could see the condensation forming on the family photos in the hallway.
The frigid zone. It's often reported when an entity is drawing massive amounts of kinetic energy to manifest a physical form. Did you call out for the boys?
I did. I dropped my keys on the console table and called for Toby. He came to the top of the stairs, but he didn't run down like he usually does. He just stood there, gripping the banister so hard his knuckles were white. He looked hollow. I asked him why the house was so cold, and he whispered, "Mom, why are you asking? You just told us to turn the AC down 5 minutes ago."
Chills, Chloe. Absolute chills. What did you say to him?
I laughed, George. I actually laughed because I thought he was playing a prank. I told him I just walked through the door. But Sam, the younger one, poked his head out from behind Toby. His eyes were huge, brimming with tears. He said, "But Mom, you're already in the kitchen. You're making us the special soup."
The special soup. Did you have a specific recipe they knew?
No, that's the thing. We don't have a special soup. I felt this jolt of electricity go down my spine, the kind of instinctual dread that tells you a predator is in the room. I walked toward the kitchen, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. As I got closer, I heard it, the sound of a knife hitting a wooden cutting board. Thwack, thwack, thwack. Rhythmic. Perfect. And then I heard a voice humming. It was my voice, my exact pitch, my exact vibrato. It was humming a lullaby my grandmother used to sing, one I haven't thought of in 20 years.
That's deep memory harvesting. These things don't just copy your face, they scrape your subconscious for data to make the mimicry more seamless. Did you go into the kitchen?
I had to. My kids were in that house. I rounded the corner, and George, I saw myself. From the back, it was perfect. The same messy bun I wear for my shifts, the same blue scrubs with the bleach stain on the left hip. She was standing at the stove, stirring a pot of something thick and dark. I said, "Who are you?"
Did she turn around?
She didn't just turn, she uncoiled. When she faced me, it was like looking into a funhouse mirror that had been dipped in oil. It was my face, but the proportions were slightly off. The skin was too tight, stretched over the cheekbones until it looked translucent like parchment. And the eyes, they were my hazel color, but the pupils were vertical like a goat's or a snake's, vibrating with a frantic, hungry energy.
That's the biological mismatch. The physical shell struggles to maintain the human geometry. What did she do when she saw the real you?
She smiled, but she didn't have my teeth. They were needle-thin, rows of them like a shark's, wet with a black, viscous saliva. She held up the tasting spoon and said, "The harvest is early this year, Chloe. We need more salt." She looked down at the cutting board, and I realized what she'd been chopping. It wasn't vegetables, George. She had been slicing her own forearm into neat, thin strips. There was no blood, just that black sludge leaking into the pot. She didn't seem to feel it. She just kept smiling, her jaw unhinging further than any human bone should allow.
Pure predatory display. She was showing you that she owned your form. How did you get the boys out?
I screamed for them to run to the car. I didn't take my eyes off her. She started to move toward me, but her gait was wrong. Her knees bent backward with a sickening, wet crack at every step. She was mimicking my walk, but failing the physics of it. I grabbed the heavy cast-iron skillet from the island and threw it at her. It made a sound like a hollow plastic drum. No thud of flesh. She just giggled. My laugh, but echoed like it was coming from the bottom of a well.
Pure predatory display. She was showing you that she owned your form. How did you get the boys out?
I screamed for them to run to the car. I didn't take my eyes off her. She started to move toward me, but her gait was wrong. Her knees bent backward with a sickening, wet crack at every step. She was mimicking my walk, but failing the physics of it. I grabbed the heavy cast-iron skillet from the island and threw it at her. It made a sound like a hollow plastic drum. No thud of flesh. She just giggled. My laugh, but echoed like it was coming from the bottom of a well.
And you made it out?
I grabbed the boys and bolted. We're in the SUV now, but George, she's standing at the window. She's not hiding anymore. She's pressed her face against the glass, and the heat from her breath is fogging it up, but the fog is forming words. I can see it in the porch light. It says, "Almost done."
Chloe, listen to me very carefully. Do not go back inside and do not look at her eyes through the glass. We've seen cases in the Pacific Northwest where the visual tether is how they finalize the swap. If she locks eyes with you for too long, the version of you in the car might not be the one who wakes up tomorrow.
She's tapping on the glass now, George. Tink, 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 with those needle teeth. My boys are crying in the back seat, but they're not looking at the house. They're looking at me. They keep asking why my eyes are changing.
Chloe? Chloe! Hang on, we're getting a lot of feedback on the line. It sounds like bones breaking. Chloe, are you still there? All I'm hearing is humming now. That same lullaby. Listeners, we may have just witnessed a total integration. If you're in the Terrytown area, stay away from any house with a woman in blue scrubs standing in the window. We're going to a hard break to try and trace that call. God help us all.
You're listening to Lurking Moon Radio. The clock just struck 3:28 a.m., the witching hour's peak. And tonight we are venturing into the moss-draped shadows of the South. We're talking about the ideomotor phenomenon, or as the ancients call it, the devil's telegraph. I've got Felix on the line from Savannah. Felix, they say every brick in your city is soaked in some kind of tragedy. I understand you dug up something in your basement that should have stayed buried.
That's an understatement, George. I'm standing on my porch right now because I can't breathe inside that house. The air feels like it's filled with invisible soot. I live in one of those old federal-style row houses on Jones Street. We were doing some foundation work last Tuesday when we found a cavity behind a loose brick in the coal cellar.
A hidden pocket. That's usually where people hide the things they're too afraid to burn. What was inside?
It was a board, George, but not cardboard or plastic. This was a heavy slab of cypress wood, dark as dried blood, with the letters carved so deep they looked like open wounds. No Parker Brothers logo on this one. It was wrapped in a salt-stained burlap sack that smelled like swamp water and old copper. My brother-in-law, Silas, thought it'd be a hoot to try it out. I should have broken his hand before he touched that planchette.
Savannah and the occult go together like bourbon and branch water. But playing with an unlabeled board is like opening a door in a dark hallway without checking the floor first. Tell us about the session.
We went down to the basement at midnight. We didn't even have candles. We just used the dim yellow bulb hanging from the rafters. The moment we put our fingers on the planchette, which was made of a smoothed-down piece of human bone, George, I swear it, the basement went silent. Not just quiet, but dead. Even the crickets outside stopped.
That's the vacuum effect. It's when an entity leaches the ambient sound waves to manifest. Who did you try to contact?
We didn't even get to ask. The planchette didn't just glide, it jerked. It moved with such violence that Silas's fingernails started to bleed from the friction against the wood. It felt like a magnet was pulling our arms into the table. It started spelling, rapid fire, Harlan.
Harlan. Does that name mean anything to your family tree?
My great-grandfather was Harlan Crane. He disappeared in the 40s. The family story was always that he hopped a train and started a new life in New Orleans. But the board, it started spelling out something else. Under the hearth.
Under the hearth, right beneath your feet.
Exactly. And then the board got mean. It didn't just stay on the letters. The planchette started spinning in figure eights, which any researcher knows is a sign of a demonic or chaotic presence trying to break through. My sister, Clara, started crying. The board spelled C-L-A-R-A, knows why. And then it gave a date, July 14th, 1982. George, that's the day our father died in a supposed hunting accident.
This is what we call information leakage. These entities don't just know your name, they know the rot in your closet. What did it reveal about your father?
It spelled, not an accident. And then it described the scene with graphic, surgical precision. It talked about the smell of the gunpowder, the way the mud felt under the fingernails. It said Silas's father, my uncle, had pulled the trigger over a land dispute we never knew existed. But the worst part wasn't the spelling, it was the physical manifestation.
Give it to me straight, Felix. No holding back.
The shadows on the basement walls started to thicken. They didn't just stay on the brick, they detached. This tall, spindly shape, looking like a man made of wet smoke, crawled out from under the furnace. It didn't have a face, just a vertical slit that opened up to reveal rows of yellowed, needle-like teeth. It started whispering, not in our ears, but inside our heads. It was my great-grandfather's voice, but it sounded like it was being squeezed through a throat full of dirt.
A mimic apparition. It was using the family connection to ground itself. Did it attack?
It lunged at Silas. He fell backward and his eyes rolled into his head. He started speaking in a voice that wasn't his, a deep, wet rattle. He started reciting the hidden locations of every Crane family sin for the last 100 years. Murders, thefts, betrayals. It was like a dam had burst. The basement floor started to crack, and this black, oily bile began seeping up through the floorboards, smelling like a mass grave in the July sun.
That's ectoplasmic hemorrhaging. The house itself was reacting to the truth. How did you get out?
I grabbed the board and tried to throw it, but it was stuck to the table like it was part of the wood. I had to drag Silas and Clara up the stairs, while that thing was clawing at the back of my heels. I could feel its cold, slimy fingers bruising my ankles. We slammed the basement door and pushed the heavy oak hutch in front of it.
And that's where you are now, locked out of your own cellar?
Yeah, but George, the scratching hasn't stopped. It's not coming from the door anymore. It's coming from the floorboards beneath my feet on the porch.
And the board, I can hear it. It's still moving down there. I can hear the planchette clicking against the wood. Click, click, click. It's spelling something over and over again. What's it spelling, Felix? Your turn, Felix. It won't stop. I think it's waiting for me to go back down and finish the sentence. Felix, listen to me. Savannah is a city built on the dead, and you've just invited one of the hungriest ones to dinner. Do not go back inside. Call a specialist, someone who knows the old ways. Listeners, some secrets are kept for a reason. If you find a board behind a brick, leave it the hell alone. Felix, stay in the streetlights. We're going to a break. Don't go anywhere. Something might be standing right behind you.
You're locked in to Lurking Moon Radio. It's 3:35 a.m., that jagged hour where the desert heat finally breaks and the cold things start to crawl out of the sand. Tonight, we're peeling back the manicured lawns of suburban America. We aren't talking about ghosts in the attic. We're talking about the monsters in the cul-de-sac. I have Iris on the line from Scottsdale. Iris, you're calling from one of those high-end gated communities, aren't you? Silverleaf?
Yes, George. It's supposed to be the safest place in Arizona. 10-foot walls, 24-hour armed security, and more cameras than a Vegas casino. But I've realized those walls aren't there to keep the bad element out. They're there to keep the neighborhood's secrets in. I'm currently whispering from my master closet. I've barricaded the door with a heavy dresser.
You sound terrified, Iris. Take a breath. This neighborhood watch you mentioned in your email, it isn't about checking for unlocked car doors, is it? Tell us about the midnight shift.
It started exactly 13 nights ago. I've always been an insomniac, so I was standing on my second-story balcony looking out at the McDowell Mountains. The moon was a sliver, like a fingernail scratch on the sky. At exactly midnight, I saw my neighbor, Arthur Sterling, walk out into his backyard. He wasn't in pajamas, George. He was wearing a heavy crimson robe that looked like it was made of raw silk.
Ritualistic attire. That's a bold move for a Scottsdale CEO. Was he alone?
No. Within seconds, every single back porch light in the cul-de-sac clicked off. In the dark, I saw silhouettes emerging from every house. The Millers, the Whitakers, the Hudsons, everyone. They walked to the center of their perfectly xeriscaped yards and just stood there, perfectly still. It was like watching 30 statues being dropped into the desert.
Total coordinated silence. Did they have any icons or tools?
Not at first, but then Arthur raised his hands and they all followed. They began to hum. It wasn't a vocal hum, George. It was a sub-bass vibration that made the windows in my house rattle in their frames. It felt like my teeth were going to vibrate out of my gums. And then the smell hit me. It was the scent of dry, ancient dust, mixed with something metallic, like a car battery leaking on hot asphalt.
That's sacrificial static. It's an atmospheric shift caused by group-focused intent. What happened next?
They all knelt at once. I saw Arthur pull something out of a stone basin in the center of his garden. It was a long, curved blade made of black obsidian. He didn't look up at the sky. He looked down at the ground. He drove the blade into the dirt, and the others did the same with smaller daggers. They started digging, George, not with shovels, but with their bare hands and those knives, frantic and feral.
Digging for what? In that hard-packed desert clay?
They weren't digging for something. They were letting something out. I watched as a thick, viscous black liquid began to bubble up from the holes they made. It wasn't oil and it wasn't water. It was pulsing. It looked like a living organ, a giant lung made of tar, expanding beneath the entire neighborhood. When the liquid touched their skin, they didn't flinch. They started rubbing it on their faces, their robes, their throats.
That's an anointing of the void. It sounds like a localized earth deity cult. Did they see you watching?
Last night, they did. I was trying to film it on my phone. I wanted proof that I wasn't losing my mind. The flash went off by mistake. It was just a split-second burst of light, but in that silence, it felt like a bomb. All 30 of them, every single neighbor, stopped digging. At the exact same time, they didn't turn their bodies. They just turned their heads, George, like owls. 180 degrees.
Christ, that's not human anatomy, Iris. That's a vessel state. The individuals are gone. Something else is wearing their skin.
Their eyes, they weren't white anymore. They were glowing with the same sickly, pulsing black light as the fluid in the ground. Arthur Sterling looked up at my balcony and pointed. He didn't say a word, but his jaw dropped open, unhinged, and a swarm of those giant desert cicadas flew out of his mouth in a screaming cloud. I ran inside and locked every door, but I can hear them now.
What can you hear? Are they trying the doors?
No, it's worse. They're standing in my front yard now, George. All of them. I can see them on my Ring camera. They're not trying to break in. They're humming. That vibration is so strong now that the mirrors in my bathroom have started to crack. They're spelling things on my lawn using that black tar stuff. It says, "The soil requires a witness."
Iris, you need to get to the roof or find a way out through the garage. Don't touch the ground if you can help it. If that liquid is a conduit, the very floor of your house might not be solid much longer.
George, the humming just stopped. There was a sound of heavy, rhythmic scratching against wood. They're not humming anymore. They're using their knives. They're cutting through the stucco. I can see the black blades poking through the drywall in my closet. They're coming through the walls, George. They're not using the doors.
Iris, stay with me. Iris. Damn it, control. We lost her. We have a localized event in Silverleaf, Scottsdale. If anyone is in that area, do not stop your car. Do not look at the lawns. We're going to stay on air as long as the signal holds. We're getting reports of power outages across the McDowell area. This is Lurking Moon Radio. Keep your lights on, and for God's sake, don't look at the neighbors.
We appreciate you tuning in to Lurking Moon Radio. If these tales hit home, smash that like button and subscribe, and help us keep hunting for what's lurking in the shadows. Till the next one, keep searching for the unknown.